is it? May 24th, 2026. Leslie here, Leslie Plazic, Zazoo Plazz, here for the weekly Memorial Day weekend special Zazoo Plazz report. A little special. It's pouring rain out. After all week it was hot. Then I put all my sunscreen on. I go out, it's pouring rain. It's always the way, right? It's always the way. We're going to do a lot of talking today. It's Gemini season. You know what? The sun is conjunct my north node, and it's, okay, so this is what I got going on. I got the nodes in Pisces squaring my north and south nodes. I don't know if that's a thing, but it's kind of like a fated moment, I guess. And the sun's opposite, it's opposite we got Mercury, Mercury's, Moon is square. Is Moon square Mercury? Wait, Moon square Mercury. So that's like feelings, right? Challenging. Moon is feelings and intuition, and Mercury is the mind. So it's kind of like it's kind of like a tug of war. The square is more like a challenge, like a forcing to act. So, yeah, it's talking about, it's emotions and talking about emotions and stuff like that. So that's kind of a theme for today. Sun is conjunct Uranus. So, yeah, that's like, flashes of inspiration and lightning, right? And, getting feelings out in the open, being, kind of like tased. Hey, it's Penny Day. Well, yesterday. It was yesterday, 23rd, but today, I'm doing my report for Pentecost Sunday. It's Lucky Penny Day yesterday. So I'm extending it to the rest of the weekend. We used to put these in our shoes. We had these in the 80s. I had these Bass penny loafers. They were more for, like, in the 50s. My folks, boys and girls wore them when my folks were teenagers. But, in the 80s, they kind of had a little comeback with the preppy. I was a prep. I was very preppy. And I went to a prep, Catholic college prep school. So, I didn't wear them all the time, but just like, like if we went out on the weekend, like, you'd wear them with like khaki pants and like a navy, jacket and a button-down shirt and your penny loafers with a penny in them. That was very early 80s when I was in high school. So I'm kind of in that mode today, kind of going back to high school. Class of 83 here representing. And when I was in high school, there were, a lot of like synth pop, that new wave stuff. There was punk on one hand, and then they were kind of post-punk, those British bands that came in. That's where I'm headed with the musical guest today. The musical selection is, and you look it up on Wikipedia, and they're like, oh, they're synth pop, dance pop, new wave, pre-grunge, post-punk. I don't know what the hell. They're all British bands, most of them, so many British bands came. We had the best music, but a lot of it was so different from the boomers' music. Like, even the class before me, the last class of the boomers, they had totally different musical tastes than we had. My friends and I, who were, in my class. It was, because I used to, I was on the school paper, and we had like a music column, and I'm looking back at my high school papers, and, they went from like talking about Led Zeppelin and, like rock stuff, to then, they crossed over to our class, and when we we were in charge of writing about the music. It totally changed to like new wave, pop, and just a whole new. It was there was a line there. 1965 was a real line, musically. And then we got into once I was in college, then it was Huey Lewis and the News, and it was Billy Joel throughout the 80s, but Madonna started coming in, Cyndi Lauper, all that stuff when I was that was my, I had the best music, high school and college, we did. So, that's, and of course the whole 80s, we had MTV. So maybe, you don't recognize, like when you think about a song, a lot of us, we think about the video. Oh, that's the one where the guy does that, we remember the video because we cut our teeth on MTV as teenagers, Musically, that was our, we were influenced by the way we dressed, the way we acted, the things that we cared about, It was all on MTV. We really, I wish they'd stop calling us the latchkey generation. Just get over it already. Grow up. Let yourself in the damn house. And can we just call ourselves the MTV generation? Because I think that's more accurate. Why don't we name ourselves not by traumas, which is what the millennials do. Let's label ourselves by our strengths. I mean, every generation, but especially us. We need a makeover here, folks. Instead of identifying ourselves and each other by what, all the shit that went wrong, start thinking about all the stuff that went right and all the stuff that's going right, and that's how you turn things around. You don't like the way people treat you, then, show them. Show them how you want to be treated. Okay, it's Zazoo. Right. I'm going to do a lot of talking today. Okay, it's Memorial Day weekend, but I don't care. I like to work, I just want to get stuff done. I got to make my pork stir fry after. I got a lot to do today. I'm putting the laundry off till tomorrow. If I have any time left over, I got to clean my bathroom, and I got to maybe go out, shop for clothes a little bit. But I got to get my work done first, It's always Memorial Day weekend. We were up at the house. We'd always say, oh, we're going to get, we'd have so much work. We'd be like, oh, we got a day off from work, and the kids are off from school. Let's, then we try to do too much. We try to have a cookout, and we try to get the whole garden in. I'd be planting flowers, Sometimes I wouldn't get to it till Monday. But, I'd go to the garden place or whatever, and then back to my comedian, Bob Marley. I mentioned him last week, Bob Marley. He's a comedian out of like Maine, Massachusetts. He does a lot of New England humor. And my favorite thing, he posted it this week again. He says, you live in New England. He says, you spend your time twice a year getting shit in or out of the shed. He said, oh, it's springtime, time to get all the shit out of the shed. It's true. You got to get the patio furniture, the deck furniture, the chairs, the tables, all the toys, right? My ex-husband, he'd go in there. I'd say, you get the pots. He'd have to go and get the pots because they still had dirt in them, from last year. And we wouldn't fill it all up we'd get some potting soil and top it off, or he'd go and get some compost up the street at the orchard. So he'd get all the shit out of his shed. And so he'd drag out the pots, and I'd put all the flowers in the pots, and then he'd have to drag them up on the deck, or in the front. And then he said in the fall, you got to get all the shit back in the shed. It's so true. We spent it, and when I was a homeowner, we spent half the year taking the shit in and out of the shed. My kid gave me, my son, of course, the Virgo, gave me a very nice, it says, spill the tea. So that's very appropriate for this week. It's Gemini season, and I put my little sticker on there, and stationery is special. May these pages grant you the opportunity to document a tiny piece of your beautiful life. Isn't that nice? I already filled up the first page. Very nice. Oh, it's one of those nice ones with the gold on the side. I have gold plated journal. In the past I would have. Oh, it's got a little bookmark too. See, two double bookmarks, so you can get 2 pages. I would say, oh, this is too nice to use, and then I wouldn't use them. I wouldn't use my nice things, and now I use them. When somebody gives me a journal, I ask for them for my birthday and Christmas or whatever. I mean, I can go buy my own, but it's nice when someone gives you one, and he knows my taste. So that's sweet. Isn't that sweet? His girlfriend graduated from Yale this week, and my ex sent me a picture. He was there. Because the kid's been living with him all year, half the year at least, most of the year. So it's the least he could do, invite his dad to the graduation. That's nice. And, then I got to see the girlfriend and her mom. She's very pretty, not what I pictured, but, she's very pretty, very, seems like a nice lady. And then her friend was there. Her friend, lady, a good friend of hers was there, I guess. And so all of them were under the Yale arch, and his girlfriend had her cap and gown and her, she's all happy, and my kid was there towering over everybody, almost as tall as the arch. I remember that arch because I had a friend a year ahead of me in high school who went to Yale, and she invited me down when I was when she started, like the beginning of my senior year. It was the spring of my junior year, I guess. No, maybe it was that summer. It was like, when I was still looking at colleges. And she took us on a tour and showed me around. And I said, it's big. I don't know. I wanted to do business. I wanted to go to a business school. And I wanted to apply to a Catholic college because I wanted there to be a theological. I don't know. I just ended up, I wanted to go to a business school. That was kind of my thing. But then it turned out that the 3 Catholic colleges in my area, I applied, Boston College was my first choice. And then I applied to Fairfield University in Connecticut. And then Providence College was my 3rd choice. I got into all of them, but, I really wanted to go to BC because I wanted to study with Jesuits, and I wanted to learn things other than, business and others, and, the arts and humanities. And I knew I'd feel comfortable there. There'd be kids like me there. And there were 9 of us from my high school who ended up going there. But we never saw each other. We went in our separate directions. Kind of like the apostles after the Pentecost. I didn't even remember that there were, maybe there was 1 or 2 that I used to see. But, we were all in different majors. There was one guy went, pre-law, and then one was like pre-med, a couple pre-med, 2 or 3, more, 3, I think. There might have been one guy who did business, but I never saw him. I think I was the only business one. Yeah. So, they all went and everybody did their thing, and, we didn't, I think there's some appeal now that, Gemini's in my 9th house of higher education. So it's appropriate for me to talk about these things. Higher education, travel, these are the things I think about this time of year. It's the time I went abroad to Spain in 1985 when I was, in college. My grandmother gave me a little money, and my parents paid for me to go on this trip. It was through Yukon, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime trip. It was to study, immerse myself in Spanish, contemporary Spanish life, art, history, and literature. We studied everything, political science, politics of the day. We met with politicians. It wasn't a big deal. We went to art museums. We traveled throughout the country. We sampled all the food, We went dancing. We were in the flamenco. Some of the kids went to the bullfight. I didn't do that. Soccer, they went to a soccer game. It was a soccer game. But we did all these things, and we met a lot of people. And then once the son went into cancer, I was ready to go home. The end of June. I'm like, all of a sudden I was just exhausted. I'm like, oh. So, astrology is just so, it's just so appropriate. It just really is. Yeah. So, and then also yesterday was Ken Jennings from Jeopardy. He was champion, and then he also, hosts Jeopardy. It was his birthday. He's 52. So I did a little thing on my Facebook page about Jeopardy, and I remember that Weird Al song I lost on in Jeopardy. That was a good parody. I love that one. So we got the sun. Yeah, sun's Gemini. I went through all this. We got Mars is in Taurus. Nothing really much going on. There's a couple of things I talked about already. And it's cute. I noticed they planted the petunias here, the same kind that I used to plant up at the house, the pink and the purple and white. It's just so weird. It's like they're, it's like my home. It's like they know what I like. They planted the petunias. So pretty. I talked about that. Okay, Zazoo, get to the Bible. Okay. Are we ready? I guess we're ready. Did I yap enough? Yes. I need to have my snack. I'm really hungry. My paleo hot chocolate after this. Okay, so it kind of occurred to me today. It's sort of the theme. It's like we can't. Last week, I touched on the idea that Jesus told the apostles, "Stay put until the Holy Spirit comes." It's kind of the thing. Sometimes we feel like we're stuck in life, but it's really the universe, God saying, hold tight. Wait for the Holy Spirit to inspire you. Come on, you, and then boom, it'll. You'll know it's time to move. Whatever it might be. I got my socks. So I was reflecting on that, and then this week is the natural follow-up to that, with the apostles. It's at Pentecost we have them in Acts 2, the Acts of the Apostles. They're all in one place. They're always in one place. They're all stuck together in one room, kind of cowering because they're afraid. And it's kind of like a lot of my peers, friends that I had, Gen X friends, my peers, within a couple years of me. You go on, I look for people, and they got all their profiles locked down. They don't want anybody to see that. What are you hiding? Why are you hiding? Now she's getting up. Now I got to deal with this. Not you. I wish, that some of the people that I want to talk to wouldn't be so, damn locked down all the time. What are you hiding, right? They're afraid that somebody's going to spy on them or find out stuff about them, and then all I see is a LinkedIn profile, that shows that they've had 50 jobs since college. I mean, these are people like me. But, I used to be like that. I get it. But then, once I started going, wrote my book, and I started talking more, spilling the tea, it became easier and easier, So I don't care what anybody else does. I just, it's just kind of too bad, if people, like they say, if you die with your story and your gift's still in you, right? That should be people's number one priority, is finding out what that thing is that you're anointed to do, and do it. So that's exactly what's going on. You know, the apostles are on, and they hear the sound, the wind, you know, and then they get the tongues of fire that come and rest on each one of their heads, right? Not the same, not one big tongue of fire, all different ones, right? Little ones. You see the picture of the apostles, they got little flames coming out the top of their head, off the crown, right? So then they start speaking, right? They start talking about God, but each person that's listening to them hears, and they're all from all over the world, right? From every country, all these different countries. They all hear them speaking in their own language. See? Would you just stop? Really, you're getting up at 6 o'clock on a Sunday. Okay. So, you know, it's the air sign, Gemini, right? Talking. So, anyway. And in the psalm it says, Lord, send out your spirit and renew the face of the earth. So, you know, we should, in other words, in the psalm, the idea is we want God to approve of the work we're doing. We want to, you know, bless and, you know, show our appreciation to God by doing that which he put us here to do. And, you know, and to be happy about it. Because work shouldn't be drudgery. It should be a natural expression of your own energy, right? Not somebody else's. Yours, right? So, pleasing to him be my theme, it says. You know, and if you're talking about taking away the breath and perishing and, you know, you returning to dust, right? Somehow I stumbled upon some of those, you know, those scary videos. Oh, she's going to take her damn dog out now. Okay. I'm sorry, her nice dog. What is with this woman and my Zazoo report? God, she's got radar on me, I swear. Anyway. Okay, so, yeah. So I stumbled upon some of those videos. You know, you remember on September 11th when the people at the very top couldn't breathe, right? So they punched out the windows, and the poor people were, you know, leaning out of the windows trying to get air. You know, and it just popped up on my, and it was so heart-wrenching and so painful to watch those people, you know, gasping for breath. You know, you remember that day. You know what I'm talking about. You know, and then once the building collapsed, right, it came into dust, just dust. And think about the towers, right? Twins, and Gemini is the twins, right? You think about it. I'm just going to leave that right. I'm not going to get into that. But, you know, it says, and then you send the spirit, then you create. You create. And so the opposite of war, like they say in Rent, the opposite of war isn't peace, it's creation. So that's, you know, that's the idea. So, okay, First Corinthians, Paul says there, you know, this is a popular reading. You hear this a lot. The different gifts, but the same Spirit, right? Different types of service. Now we have Memorial Day weekend. Different service, right? Different branches of the service, but the same source, right? God. So, and to each, you know, these gifts are given for some benefit, right? Which means you have to give, you have to serve the world, right? Once you determine what it is that you can contribute, then you can move out on the astrological wheel, right, toward the transpersonal signs, from the personal signs, which is me, out into service to the world. You know, it takes some people longer than others. Not that you don't serve, you know, but it's different. You're not serving in your unique way. You might, go and work and do things, but there's something else that you have to do, and your soul knows. Okay? So, yeah. So, and then he talks about one body with many parts, right? One spirit baptizes everybody into this one body, right? Where each part of it has its own job to do, right? The eyes, the ears, you can't say one is superior to the another, right? You need everything. Well, maybe not your appendix, but you know what I mean. It's just it's a symbolism of it, right? So, in other words, each part of your body was, here for a reason. So you don't want to mess with that. Yeah, and all drink of the same Spirit. That's it. So it says, "Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful, kindle in them the fire of your love." Kindle, like the book, the Kindle. Yeah. So the gospel is John 20. They're all, locked down. They're in lockdown. It's 2020 now. But, kind of that way. So, would you just stop? I am just so... Okay. Go to bed. Go back to bed. Anyway. So, Jesus comes and says peace, everything. And shows them his side and everything. And then he breathes on them and says, receive the Holy Spirit, this, and gives them permission to receive, to forgive sins, or retain them as such, So this is an initiation that it's kind of like, like the church does holy orders, but it's for everybody, really. It's not just for a few, guys. Everybody gets this initiation, right? So that's the way I look at it. I think this needs to be modernized, because there were women, there were in the early church, you read about it, there were women serving, but they kind of redacted that part. Big black bars over it. Yeah, so let's see. Okay, so we'll get to the song. Okay, I was saying, there's a song called Talk, 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 Talk. There's another song, Talkie, 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 Talk. What was that song? The Talkie, Talkie, Talk. Talk, 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 Talkie, Talk, Talk. I'll have to look that one up. Talk, Talk, Talkie, Talk. That's the one I was thinking. Talkie, Talk. Is that the Don Henley Dirty Laundry one? I can put that one, maybe. Talk, talk, talkie, talk, talk, talk. That's the one I was thinking of. But what came up was the band Talk Talk. And they had a song called Talk Talk that was released April 5th, 82. It was the second single from the debut album, The Party's Over. These are the albums we listened to when we were teenagers, folks. The party's over. Welcome to the world, kids. The party's over. Too bad you missed it. It was great. Anyway, that's the way I felt anyhow. So anyway, it's a song about some guy, somebody's cheating on him, or doing him dirty, and he finds out about it, and they're wasting his time, he's done, he's had it, you're lying to me. He says, when things are going good for me, you're laughing at me, you're not taking me seriously, and then when I'm, down and out, you're crying for me, right? We all have had those friends, those fake friends. You can see right through them. Anyway, so the fake ones, right? We don't need fake friends. friends. We don't need fake people in our lives anymore. This Mark Hollis, I guess he had an older brother who was in the music industry and helped him out a little. But mainly Mark was the genius behind. There was 3 other guys in the band. They were like new wave, dance, synth pop, post punk. I don't know. They were British. They're British. Well, he passed away at 64 in 2019. So sad. He died. He was sick and died. So this song was. I remember. I keep hearing "It's My Life" because that was their more popular song. But this one did pretty well. It's my life. It's my life. That one. But this one is all you do is talk, 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 talk. I remembered it once I heard it. It got up to the number 75 on the Billboard U.S. chart, and it got into the top 40 mainstream rock. And let's see, he said he didn't want the fame part. He wanted to make music and he wanted to influence music, which he did. But he didn't sell out, right? So a lot of other artists were inspired by this because he kept his creative control and integrity. He didn't sell out to corporate interests and pressure, right? So that was his legacy, that he did that. And he wrote a lot of songs, for the band. He was the main, I guess, creative force behind the band. He had a family and everything, but it's so sad to hear that, he's not around anymore. But he left us his music. So there's that. And, it was really heartwarming to go and, see the video. And then there were all these comments from my fellow 80s kids like, man, we had the best music. If you're here, you're awesome. And you're epic. You have great taste in music. Yeah, I do. There's one thing I can say about myself is I think, my dad, I had a lot of music. A couple things my parents provided when I was growing up was a lot of books, a lot of things to read, and a lot of music, whether we were playing it or listening to it, all kinds of music, all different genres too. So, I could read anything, listen to just about anything. I just never had enough. never enough. Wasn't that a song too? Never enough. No. Anyway. Yeah. So anyway, I guess I'm done for today. I talk enough. I'm gonna go have the rest of my weekend here. So I hope whenever you're watching this, you have a good weekend or good week, and go out there and get the spirit, make it a great day. And I will be here next week, same place, different time. Take care.